It is absolute bullshit. It is just a flat out pile of crap. Good morning, everybody. This whole notion that the rest of the world is caught up to American basketball, just absolutely insane to think that for even a split second. Welcome to today's edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest, aka Defo, as emblazoned on my tombstone, and we are here to help you do just that. Bury your bookie. Got off to a good start with yesterday's pick of the Houston Astros. We'll get into that. And also into the theory about how it's impossible to conceive, impossible that the rest of the world has caught up to the United States in basketball. If that Serbian team showed up at your local park somewhere outside of Philadelphia or Chicago, maybe the streets of Compton, and they said, hey, can we run with you guys? You're thinking, who are these big white stiffs? You wouldn't even accord them the chance to get out there and wait 3 games to get out on the court. But still, I managed to make it a little bit difficult for the United States of America to win the gold. And we'll get into this thing about the 3-on-3, which it's absolutely preposterous that the biggest and the most prominent representative that we can have of the United States in this category of sport was Jimmer Fredette. It's one thing if you go back like 50 years or whatever it was. I guess it wasn't that long ago. And he's chucking 50-footers for BYU in the tournament and lighting it up. But this version of Jimmer Fredette, I mean, was probably better equipped for the breaking competition than he was for the 3-on-3 basketball. The program today is brought to you by a variety of sources. Greenlight Ventures, of course, and they are leaders in the gaming industry and also are featuring these alerts on arbitrage, which is the hottest thing with artificial intelligence, alerting you to situations where if you bet your money proportionally right, you're guaranteed that you cannot lose. Can you imagine? Playing like that, that's a way to bury your bookmaker for sure. And also by Bet Online, which is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From preseason NFL to college kicking off, Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. So you can continue to get involved, and that's really a lot of fun. Think you know your stuff? Get in on the winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor Pool. Always love that for the upcoming season. It's great when a lot of people get eliminated with some chalk on the opening day, and you happen to go with the Bears. And they were underdogs, and you survive, and everybody else gets knocked out. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino. You can get involved in poker. You can play some blackjack. You can get engaged at over 150 slot games that they have. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, and get in on all the action. Bet online. The game starts here. I guess what disturbed me about this whole idea of the rest of the world catching up with the United States in basketball at the Olympic Games was the 3-on-3, which was an atrocity. I was one of those guys that didn't matter where a game was taking place. If I was driving through a city and I didn't even know the area, and maybe it wasn't necessarily the place where you consider that your being would be in the safest of circumstances, if I saw a basketball game, I wanted to play half-court basketball. I'm sure a lot of you people were the same way. You just couldn't pass up the opportunity to play. And probably were in better games and against better teams than we saw fielded for the USA in the 3-on-3 competition. As we said, I mean, you could go out to the outskirts of just about any city in America and find a 3-on-3 team that was holding the court and think, yeah, I'd rather have those guys at Rucker Park any day than Jimmer Fredette, the nondescript Barry kid, who is that one of Rick Barry's grandchildren? I'm not sure. And 2 other schmucks who nobody had ever heard of before. I don't even know if they had a basketball background. I think one guy was a UPS guy. People are suggesting they should go to the Ice-T 3-on-3 league. Is it Ice-T or Ice Cube? I'm not sure if it's the Cube or the T, but whoever the guy is with the 3-on-3 league. And just take one of those teams where you're getting like a 68-year-old Allen Iverson. And you still would have been better off. But the only reason that the rest of the world looks like it's caught up with the United States in terms of basketball prowess, the USA gold medal winning Olympic team notwithstanding, a veritable dream team of all-stars and future Hall of Famers, where they could afford to have Jason Tatum on the bench for 2 entire games. Is Bob Cousy barking up the wrong tree, by the way? He's pointing a finger at Steve Kerr and saying, you, like most of America, hate the Celtics. Everybody outside of Boston, are there Celtic fans outside of Boston? I guess there would be some. But for the most part, they're viewed somewhat in the same light as the Dallas Cowboys, once America's team, America's favorites, and now everybody is thinking, I wouldn't even see a Ben Affleck movie because I despise the Celtics so much. And maybe you don't care for Affleck either. But nonetheless, it seems impossible to conceive that the rest of the world has caught up with the United States in basketball. All right, we make our debut yesterday, and there was a lot at stake on the program yesterday because I felt compelled. And we're going to have a lot of different handicappers on the show that I think you're really going to enjoy. And these guys approach it from all different angles, whether it was, and we have guys that you're thinking that there's no logic to your pick whatsoever. But we just happen to know that this guy is like Lou Gehrig, a fellow that we should feature later on this week, named the Greek. And you're thinking, today, I feel like the luckiest man on the face of the earth. That's this guy. He's lucky in everything but marriage, which could be said maybe of a lot of us. But I felt a certain amount of pressure to make a pick yesterday on the program. And we were going to look at the baseball card. Now, we did give you the Miami Dolphins in a season proposition bet yesterday. Miami Dolphins to win the AFC East under the simple premise that if they don't win the AFC East, heads are going to be rolling down the hallways there in Miami Gardens, Florida, because this is the year they have gone Johnny Chan. They have shoved all in. They paid everybody. Tua got his money. Tyreek Hill is happy. He's doing somersaults on his way out to the training camp practices. And everybody, Waddle got paid. Jalen Waddle got a pretty good team. They lost some players to free agency, but they managed to accrue back enough veteran players from other rosters where you're thinking, I don't even know if they really suffered any significant deficit in terms of talent in the offseason. So they're all in. I'm thinking something happens to the Jets. The Jets are a franchise that exists under the curse of Rich Kotite, are they not? How can you possibly back the Jets with your hard-earned capital in a tough economy and say, well, you know what? I think Aaron Rodgers, he may shine. He may win the MVP. I'm not buying it. I'm thinking the Jets are in a pile of trouble. They're a cursed franchise. Ever since my man Joe Willie held that finger in the air, that was their last big game, the New York Jets. They had a couple of blips there of glory with Rex Ryan cracking the whip. But ultimately, it came down to the fact that Mark Sanchez was not going to lead them to any Super Bowl championship, regardless of how lucky they may have been with the way the ball bounced in their favor in the postseason. Remember the Indianapolis Colts and that tank job? Unbelievable. But other than that, I mean, since 1969. So what makes you think that that's going to change overnight? Because Aaron Rodgers comes back from one of those hideous injuries that a quarterback could sustain at a young age, much less at an old age. It's going to be tough. And then the Bills are the favorite to win the AFC East, and there's a good chance that they do. But at the same time, it seemed like they were depleted somewhat in the talent pool, most notably Stephon Diggs, who was a favorite target and often bailed out Josh Allen with his wild sprees of dispersing the ball to the other team and making, is any turnover well-timed? I don't know, but these are some of the most ill-fated turnovers that you could possibly commit. So why not take a shot? Miami Dolphins plus 210 on the season proposition. That was one thing that we had going. Then, on the other side of the equation, picking a baseball game last night, we give you the Houston Astros only laying minus 120 in their game against the Tampa Bay Rays. There was a lot of rationale behind it, but it was just more of a gut feeling. You had Flamber Valdez, who ended up going, I think, 5 2/3, 6 1/3, something in that nature or neighborhood, and was great. I mean, the curveball, they couldn't hit it. You're looking at the Rays lineup since they traded away most of their worthwhile major leaguers, which they seem to be in that vicious cycle of having to do it every year. They do it very well. They do it better than any other organization, namely the Miami Marlins, who just continue to plunge into an abyss, the likes of which I don't know that they can overcome the depths of despair that they are bringing on their fan base and the organization in general. They fired a bunch of people in the front office again yesterday. I'm not sure that that's going to do any good. But anyway, the Rays are a very representative organization. They're still around 500 in the AL East, a real tough division with Baltimore and the Yankees. The Blue Jays are always trying, and they managed to hold their own no matter what the circumstances. And yet they're bringing up a bunch of guys that make Bud Harrison look like he was Mickey Mantle. Averages are not even Mario Mendoza would have been a Hall of Famer on this team. Because everybody's hitting like 116, 157. I'm a big batting average guy, but it didn't look like they had a whole lot of firepower in their lineup yesterday. And of course, we're sitting there living and dying because the one thing that you don't want to do if you're going to do a handicapping show of any type is open up with a loser. And we didn't want to do that. Now, I don't know what level of certainty we were giving out this pick, but it seemed logical. They had won 9 straight, the Houston Astros, when Valdez was on the mound, or they now have won 9 straight, had won 8 previous starts that he had made, and he's been pitching great. Against a guy who was doing all right for the Tampa Bay Rays, but has no hitting support whatsoever. And sure enough, I mean, you want to get out of the gate quickly. I'm the guy that's at the track going, pop it, when the horses are at the gate. Pop the gate. And what usually happens? Your horse breaks in a tangle, throws the jockey. You're hopelessly out of it right from the very beginning. I'll never forget, there was a guy in California many years ago that was nicknamed by the great Professor Gordon Jones, a handicapper for the now defunct, which is probably a preface that you could put in front of almost every newspaper, the now defunct L.A. Herald Examiner. Anyway, I love the Professor Gordon Jones. His daughter, Joanne Jones, went on to be a very significant handicapper at a lot of tracks around, and was on TVG and some of these other racing channels in their early stages. And still, I guess, is involved in the game. Anyway, the professor loved it when the Phantom Plunger was at the track. And this was a guy that would put $50,000 or $100,000 to show on horses that looked like they absolutely could not lose. I mean, it was like putting 50 grand to show on Secretariat if they were taking show betting, which some tracks would then eliminate it because they were mandated by the state to pay out 5%. So the lowest that you could get back, if you bet 100 grand, you were going to win $5,000 by having that 100 grand in the show pool for a couple of minutes while they ran the race. Is it worth it? I guess for the thrill. I mean, if you're some kind of guy that needs these kind of euphoric highs that you get from daredevil type of shit, yeah, I don't know. But think about it. If you lose one time, you have to win the next 20 to get into a profit again, or to even break even, right? I mean, you lose 100 grand. Now you've got to win 20 of these bets to get back to even. You're risking another $2 million just to get back to even for the chance to win 5 grand. It hardly seems worth it, right? I mean, in terms of leveraging your money properly as a gambler, it's one of the poorest cases of money management you could ever have. But it's a sure thing. So sure enough, the Phantom Plunger was there one day at Santa Anita, and there was a horse running called Lemhi Gold. It was trained by Laz Pereira. And Lemhi Gold had debuted. Magnificent looking animal. Paid a lot of money for him at the sale. Extremely well bred out the ass, and makes his maiden appearance in a stakes race at Santa Anita when Santa Anita was running fields that were larger than 4 horses in most races. And Lemhi Gold jogs in this stakes race. Now comes back because they couldn't find a race for him in an allowance race on a weekday, and is running against only 4 other entrants in the race, and just has to run third for this guy to cash. And so there was great excitement all around the track as the Phantom Plunger went all in, put the $100,000 to show. We saw it show up in the show pool. There were like 8 grand in the show pool altogether between the whole 5-horse field. All of a sudden, boom, there's 100. It's straight on the show pool and they used to show this at the track on the scoreboard when people actually bet show instead of pick 5s and pick 6s and twin pick 10s. And the 100,000 shows up in the pool. They're at the gate. Lemhi Gold gets in and boom, breaks in a tangle. Right away, you're screaming, pop it, breaks in a tangle, ends up in a 4-horse photo, finishes 4th, and this guy's out $100,000. That's the way it usually goes. But when you're on the hook to make a pick, whatever can go wrong, it's Murphy's Law. It does go wrong. So we're watching the Astros last night, and I have to say, baseball in general has become fairly boring with all the strikeouts and the fact that nobody puts a ball in play. I believe 13 Rays struck out in the game last night, which was much to our delight, as we're watching one guy after another just getting rung up by an assortment of relievers. And, of course, Valdez, who was outstanding. I think he only gave up 3 hits in the game. So it was Cruz to our first victory. We gave you the Astros at -120. No great piece of heroics, but nonetheless, it was a winner. And that's what we're all about here on Bury Your Bookie. So we got off to a good start. When your reputation is at stake, right? I mean, if we lose the first bet that we give you, Henry knows this from No Filter and all the people there. They realize that's it. They may even just cancel the show. Hey, this guy's a loser. Let's get him out of here. So very happy to have gotten off to a great start. But every pitch becomes of monumental importance when you have money on a game. It makes a big difference. Even if you put $5 on the ball game. Let me recommend this to you right now. it enhances the impact of virtually everything that happens when you're watching what could have easily been a snooze fest, a 6-1 routine victory by the Houston Astros over the Tampa Bay Rays last night at minus 120. All right, we have a game for you today. I did want to say, I mean, I don't know. Do people hate Jose Altuve because of all of that controversy about the cheating and the stealing of the signs and the fact that he was probably wearing an earpiece when he was at bat and had a wire on? He looked like Frankie Pentangeli, for God's sake. I remember they didn't want to. He didn't want anybody to take his shirt off. They were going to rip it off when he had scored the winning run. I think he hit a homer, and he's rounding the bases. And the whole time he's thinking like some weasel in the back room that's under. The auspices of the FBI, and you know that you're wearing a wire at your own wedding. What the fuck? You can't go any lower than that. So he tried to hide that. I mean, the people not like Altuve because of the cheating scandal. We remember Carlos Beltran. It was like he was Mike Shreve in Santana at Woodstock, just banging on these garbage cans, telling people it's a curveball. It's going to be a curve. But other than that, I mean, I know Yankee fans despise the Houston Astros. But is Altuve not a remarkable player? I mean, this is a guy that looks like Eddie Geidel up there. I mean, a diminutive sort. And to hit the ball the way that he does, I mean, it's real throwback type of shit. Very enjoyable to watch. Much like watching Louis Rise, who was briefly with the Miami Marlins, our hometown team, but he was in town with the Padres. And you're just watching the second coming of Rod Carew. It's a pleasure to see when you contrast that with what's going on in baseball. And all of these averages that are well below, I mean, make the Mendoza line look like it was worthy of winning a batting title, just trying to get to 200. All right, we do have a game tonight, and very tepid, though. I don't know that we're staking a reputation on this one. We're going to take a shot against Trevor Rogers and the Baltimore Orioles. Rogers was acquired from the Marlins by the Orioles. He had been a shell of himself since his rookie season, when he was, just fulfilling what looked like a very, very promising and bright future with the Marlins rotation. I remember when the Mets had Pulsifer and Isringhausen, Paul Wilson, who I covered some of his games when he was a college pitcher at FSU against the University of Miami, and you're watching this guy and thinking, this is an early version of what we saw in Paul Skeens at LSU last year, the pitcher for the Pirates, who finally accrued a loss, but for the most part, has been sensational in his rookie season with the Pittsburgh Pirates. A very viable candidate for Rookie of the Year, unless they shut him down, in which case, bet somebody else. But Trevor Rogers was part of a staff. I guess they had, Jose Urania. They thought they had this kid prospect, Sixto Sanchez. They had Sandy Alcantara. He's part of this rotation that was going to be pretty good, and he acquitted himself very well as a rookie. He showed a tremendous amount of promise on a lousy Marlins team. And then after that, he I don't know if what has he had, like a couple of Tommy Johns? Everybody's had one or two now. And he's not been the same ever since. And he got shelled in his first start after being traded to the Orioles. Came back, acquitted himself a little bit better in subsequent starts, but going against the Nationals, who are going nowhere, about 10 games under 500 tonight. You're getting plus 145 on Jake Irvin, who's 8-10 and pitching to a 3.76 earned run average. I'm thinking let's take a shot with a little bit of a price here at the Nationals tonight to beat Trevor Rogers, who gets shelled and doesn't make it out of the fourth inning. So he'll probably have a no-hitter, but I would tread lightly on this one because let's face it, you're only as good as your last film. And after getting off to this great start yesterday with our Houston Astros pick, I think we're going to embrace the Nationals tonight against the Orioles. Nationals on the road. Trevor Rogers to get lit up. He's 0-1 in the American League since coming over with a 10.38 earned run average, but most of that was inflated by and inflamed by that very, very poor first start he had when he had that look like he was an extra in the Night of the Living Dead, which we've seen too frequently from him, where balls are just ricocheting off the buildings across the street from the stadium, and you see Rogers with that look like having no idea how to overcome the discrepancy in what we saw from him when he showed all that promise in his rookie season. So Nationals on a very tepid choice to beat the Orioles tonight on the road, plus 145. That's our play. Hopefully it will help you do what we're aiming to do and setting out to do, and that is bury your bookie. We will see you tomorrow. We're going to have start our handicappers appearing on the show here, so you don't necessarily have to count on my picks because it could lead to the tendency and the inclination to want to gargle with some embalming fluid by the time we get through a couple of weeks of the show. So we'll have some more expertise on the program coming your way tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm Jeff DeForest for Barry, your bookie.